Hello, everyone. Um,
Hello.
hello. We're here today to start,
Something a little different.
yeah, to start a little thing called Skye and Evan in the Morning, which is a reference that Evan doesn't get yet, but he will in a few
Still,
months.
few months, like maybe, I guess.
Who
I
knows?
know
Maybe
it's a
in a few years, maybe the podcast won't even be alive anymore once he gets the reference. But we'll keep going, keep on going.
yeah, I know it's from Community. I think I know the like inflection. I know nothing about it because I haven't seen Community yet. I'm gonna watch it with my brother at some point, but man, we have other things on our priority for watching, so I have no idea when I'm gonna get around to Community.
Well, whenever you do, you're
See.
gonna be very happy about this reference. It's a very good reference. Like I can assure you, as the biggest community fan around, I can I can assure you, it's a fun reference. Um,
I await the day.
yeah, but yeah. To start off our podcast, we decided to talk about, well, obviously, to talk about my favorite show of all time, Legion, which we just finished
Well,
watching very recently.
after getting through like so many other things, that's so Mr. Robot and then X-Men 97, Has Been Hotel.
What was the
Am
amazing
I
digital
missing?
circus that we also watched?
Yeah, 2 episodes, but that still technically counts.
Yeah.
What else? Were there other shows? I feel like there's an
Yeah,
extra
Midnight
TV show
Mass,
on
Midnight
this.
Mass.
That's right. We watched Midnight Mass too. So so many, and it was only this show that got us into the getting the podcast going. Like
Yeah, we've had this
all
idea
that while
for
we
a
were waiting,
while.
basically.
Yeah, we've
Yeah.
we've had this idea for a podcast for a while, but I was like, look, we got to talk about it when it comes to Legion. We can't skip Legion. It's my little baby. Yeah, I adore it too much to just move past it. Because the idea originally was, oh, let's talk about Mr. Robot, because we were close to finishing it, and then we did finish it, and we watched like 3 shows afterwards. So
Yeah, let's just say we have no shortage of material to discuss. That's for sure.
yeah, um, but yeah, today we're gonna talk about Legion, this FX show created by Noah Hawley, who's making the new Alien TV show, which I'm really excited about, actually. Um,
And made Fargo, which got me. It's funny. I don't know if my older brother got into the show on his own because I remember finding out about Noah Hawley when I watched Fargo season
mhm.
one, and really good stuff. But I remember hearing about Legion, and my older brother became obsessed with the show when it first started coming out. And I remember I watched the first episode and I was like, like it, I liked it, but like the things I liked about Fargo weren't really present because, and we've talked about
Yeah.
this, like Fargo kind of changed when Noah Hawley started doing Legion, and I
Hmm.
feel like this is kind of what he likes to do. It's his vibe because
Yeah.
he strayed away from Fargo season one because I'm guessing that was like a specific idea and a specific story he had in his mind, but his style kind of came to him more in what Legion was going for.
Yeah, I feel like he has this specific style that's very inspired um Kubrick principally, but also just Pink Floyd in general, but David Lynch and Fargo season one doesn't have really any of that. But then the show starts getting more and more like that. Like season two has only like the UFO as season two of Fargo, but then season three is like full out insane. Like Legion is like that season feels very Legion.
I love how you say like his style, and like what's jumping to my mind is almost like fables. Like when you ask me like what's Noah Hawley's style, it's like a what is that line from John Hamm? It's a delusion, right? Like
Hmm.
a delusion is like an egg. Like
Delusion
that
starts like
whole
any other
story
idea as an egg.
is an egg. And like that whole storyline and that whole way of like telling a story that like is a metaphor for something else. Like he did that with the fable inside of
Yeah. I mean,
or the parable inside of Fargo season one. That
season
was
three of
something inside of
Fargo
that.
is fully just like metaphorical. um,
Yeah, the planet Y and
yeah,
all like I said, that was when he came back to Fargo from Legion, so
Yeah, I mean
he
that
had
season.
ideas to make.
Yeah, that was the first season he made after Legion started, and you can tell it's very influenced by Legion season 2. It's quite similar in tone and style.
That would be a funny one to like look back on because I would be game to watching like some of Fargo again with you, but I really did not like season 3, and I can see the isms of Legion that trickle into that show, and it was like, just I wish the writing was a little more, or at least the characters were better. I don't know. Different
Yeah.
things fell down on Fargo, in my opinion.
Yeah, season 3 is a lot different from the other two, so I can understand being very taken aback by it, to say the least. Um, but we're not here to talk
Yeah.
about Fargo. Here we are on our tangents. Um, no, Legion is, by the way, spoiler warning. We're going to spoil the entirety of Legion, and as I said, it's my favorite show ever. So if you haven't watched it, I recommend you do. I also have a few videos on it if you want to check that out while you're here. Mm.
Like, comment, and subscribe.
Like, comment, subscribe. Exactly. So,
Yeah.
so okay.
It's and honestly, it's worth like it's really hard to not spoil this show,
Mhm.
especially since like it's hard not to spoil like what happens after season 1 if you're talking in vague terms. And like I said, the show's confusing to follow in and of itself. So it's like there's not you might not even be ruined by some of the spoilers that we'll talk about. So
Yeah, the way Noah Hawley describes the show is that it's an experience-driven show instead of a plot-driven show. Which is not to say that the story isn't a focus, but it's that you're supposed to take in the show the first time you watch it, just have that experience with it, and then the second time you watch it, you can like analyze it and think about the story as a whole and how it fits together and what it all means. But the first time is more meant to be just you experiencing it, and I can definitely understand that if you listen to our spoiler discussion and you watch the show still knowing everything that we talked about, the experience will still be unique and it'll still probably be worth it.
well,
Because you
it's a
can't really
funny
ruin this show when it's like so focused on giving you like a very unique experience.
Well, the hilarious thing, I'd argue that about like spoilers in general, like some people are really like mad about getting spoiled things. I've had like plot points spoiled for movies that I like. It still made like a good experience, even though I knew something was going to happen. I mean, I accidentally started reading ahead in the Slough House books, and I found out that a character in a book I'm reading right now is going to die, and I'm like, oh, it was just one of those things that's like, well, that's a little unfortunate that now I'm going to read this book and I know the character's got like a target on their back, but it's like it's always about how the story is actually told and not like who you know is going to die or what you know is going to happen. So it's on like the experience track. Like I feel like what I talked about with where you are and like even what's going on being ambiguous like that's probably by design with like what Noah Hawley wants to do. He
Hmm.
he's almost like against plot. He almost like theme and characters seem to be what's at like the forefront of all of his stories, even as far back as like Fargo, because that's one of the things I loved about Fargo season 1 is how theme oriented it is, and this Legion is very much like that. It's got themes about like psychological trauma and drug abuse and like split relationships. There's a lot of dysfunctional relationships in the show. It's one of the things I love is there's people that don't have quality relationships, but they want to be close to each other, even in spite of like what they do or like how they are. In fact, that's kind of the central idea with Farouk and David, because
Hmm.
Farouk's got some weird like fatherly love that he has to David, but he's like a parasite. And it's just it's it translates to a lot of different characters in the show, basically.
Yeah, I was actually interestingly thinking about that today because I think I told you about this TV show idea that I've had, and one of the ideas for me is that the two main characters will have a relationship that is like they love each other, but they're extremely unhealthy to each other. Like, wait, that's just basically Euphoria, Jules and rule.
Yeah,
But then
yeah.
I thought that's Legion as well. um, it's the David and Sid, like they love each other so much, but they're not healthy for each other. It's
Yeah. People are theorizing that that might be the route they go in Joker Folie à Deux. I
mhm.
really hope they don't like cop out with some like hallucination all along. Like I don't think they will, but people were wondering if she might be the abuser, which I was like, that is interesting. But like, I feel like that's the better route because the movie's called Folie à Deux. Like, it probably will be something like that, where it's just a dysfunctional relationship,
Yeah.
even if like they seemingly love each other. So
Well, yeah, it's like
Sid and
Sid and David, and I was also thinking Better Call Saul. Kim and Jimmy are also
yeah,
very much
yeah,
that. Just that idea of two people who love each other so much, but who bring each other so much pain, and it's kind of fascinating the ways all these shows kind of explore it. And I like the way, getting back to Legion, I like the way Legion does it from season one, from episode one, where they just kind of are filling a void in each other's lives, but they're not really like being there for each other. They just want to have
yeah,
someone there, to be loved, but not really to love them back. It's the thing that happens a lot with David is Sid says I love you and then he doesn't say it back in episode 1. And it's kind of like show, huh? Like he's
yeah.
only thinking of himself, like he wants to be loved, but he doesn't care to love other people because he doesn't understand it, I guess.
Yeah, like she needs to basically remind him, and it's not exactly like his fault that he doesn't understand it. Like he's confused about a lot of like how any of that works because he hasn't had like a positive experience with love. And it's what you said, like they basically just fill a void in each other just because it's better than not having the
Yeah.
void in there. And
Well, yeah,
it's
and
a bad
it's
way to
like,
get into a relationship, though.
yeah, it's like it's better to have this other person than being alone. Like David was 5 years in a mental hospital alone, taking drugs and just being a zombie, as he calls himself, when he was on drugs. And it's just like there's it's why I think the song is so fitting that plays the "She's a Rainbow" by the Rolling Stones, because she's the one bringing color into David's life. She's like a rainbow, so it's just like it's very poignant. Um, and
Yeah.
she's the one
I,
who's sorry, you're gone.
well, I was just gonna say, like, to introduce. I love that that's the first thing that's presented in season one. Is like David in episode one is like fully complacent. He's just accepted. He's like, yeah, I'm insane. I'm insane. I'm stuck
Yeah,
here. I'm never getting out. And then he's told in season one early on that he's like not like he does not have schizophrenia. Like that's what people keep trying to convince him of. And it's interesting that that's kind of the driving force behind season one storyline is
hmm
him the all the characters trying to convince him that he doesn't have schizophrenia, and then he himself trying to see that, and then like almost wanting Eddie, like he pursues it because he wants to like prove it to himself, basically.
yeah. Well, yeah, he even says it. The most dangerous thing about schizophrenia is thinking you don't have it. Um, which
Yeah,
which is just like, yeah, and that's kind of the fascinating thing because they make him believe that he's not schizophrenic. They make him believe that he's uh fully sane and that everything is, his powers, and that they come up with like an actual boogeyman that was David's problems, which is Farouk. So once you get him out, it's like David is just fully convinced, oh, he was everything that was wrong with me. Like I'm perfect now. I'm sane. I'm a normal human finally for the first time in my life. And he blames everything on Farouk because he refuses to like take a look at himself. And so like that's
yeah.
what causes all
He's
the issues. He thinks he's a he's a victim of everything, like everything has been caused to him, and he couldn't possibly be the cause of any of the issues in his life, which life isn't ever
yeah.
that simple.
It's like everything happened to him, and
Yeah.
and again that line, that mantra is like I'm a good person and I deserve love. It's I think I told you that like that was one of the things that I loved the lines. I love so much of Harry Lloyd as Charles Xavier, but like that line when he tells Gabrielle, I think he said, like, I met our son, like, and he was so angry. Like, he uses the word angry, and it's just interesting to think of David that way. Like, because the show almost tricks you. Like, you're like, he's not really like villainous. He's not really like angry or evil. But then you get hints where you're like, he's not even aware of like what he is or what he does, and he feels like he does things for the right reasons. And it's exactly what you said. It's Farouk and like his full blaming of him and
Yeah.
everything that he did. He's like, If only I did not have Farouk, then I
Then I
would be a
would
good
be,
person and
yeah.
everything would work out." But it's like,
Yeah, which is why I love the peace, love, and understanding scene so much, because it's him just basically being like, I killed them all, but I only did this to fix everything, to put everything into place to save the world. When saving the world simply means helping himself, like saving himself as a child, which may not even actually save himself. Like he doesn't want to better himself, he wants to undo the stuff that has happened to him instead of, thinking, okay, this is what's wrong with me and I need to work on fixing it, which was what they offered him. Like you can get treatment, we can help you. And he was like, no, I'm not going back to that. So he prefers to have an undo button instead of, trying to actually work on
resetting.
himself because he thinks he's not the problem. The problem is what happened to him, which is Farouk.
Yeah. Well, and again, that's the third act of season 3, which I love that. I love that it all banks on like baby David and
Mm-hmm.
like a baby getting like a better future and a better life than they would have otherwise. But yeah, that's exactly it. Is like blaming for like what happened during the childhood and like how David like turned out and grew up, and he in the show, it's like he wants to subtract things that happened to him in his life, and especially when he was a kid. But he doesn't want to like move on, and he doesn't want to like change who he is in the here and now. It's just like he wants those things to be gone, and that's probably why they brought in time travel in the third act, because
Mm-hmm.
that's what I was saying. I was I was worried because when you throw time travel into the mix, it can get tricky, but they use it to like tell a note about like not changing the past and not regretting what you have and like moving forward. That's also what's interesting about Sid and David being like tranquil at the end. I love how like when time's been affected, they're both just like, well, I guess we just
We just
work
fade
through
away.
this.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, it's that's kind of the thing, because David finally he has someone in his life that he can listen to and trust, which is his dad. Being like, we don't have to continue fighting. We don't have to kill people. We don't have to be violent. If we allow Farouk to exist as they allow us to exist, just uh, respect their right to exist as they respect ours. That's the line. uh, Everything will be fine. We don't need this barbarism, which is Charles calls it. Um, and David has been so hell bent on getting revenge on Farouk and killing Farouk and being like, he's the problem in my life, but he was able to like fix that problem without killing it, without trying to erase it and destroy everything. It was just like working things out with someone who also, like Farouk, convinces himself, young version of himself, to let things go because he realizes how much pain he has caused to someone he ended up loving and to himself. And he also is like, I should have did this. I should just exist. I should be happy with my life instead of trying to show that I'm the best, I'm the most powerful, I'm the king, as he always calls himself. So it's all
Yeah.
like of learning to accept their state in the world instead of trying to, um, erase the one thing wrong with their life, which is fascinating, I think, for those two characters because their powers are they're basically gods. Like they can create things at their will and snap things out of existence. Um, Having to
It
realize that they can't just do that with their own problems, with their own mental health, basically. I think it works really well.
It's one of the interesting things. Like I'm probably just gonna do this forever because you love Legion, I love X-97. It's like the themes intersect, but it's an interesting thing that both shows have in common where you have like these insanely powerful characters, but their mental state almost like is a weakness to them. Because that's exactly the thing. Like you look up David Haller, like what's his powers? It's like the description that I always come across is power manifestation, and it's a good way to look at his powers because he basically like can create different powers like depending on different contexts. And in the comics, they do like dissociative identity disorder. They don't do that in the show, and I it's just a different interpretation. But like David and the Shadow King both have like crazy powers that like go beyond their own bodies and forms. They're like essentially cosmic beings, but it, their psychological state holds them back. It almost stops them from being as powerful as they could be in another person's hands. And I it's very interesting that the X-Men like X-Men stories like delve with characters like that have crazy powers, but they don't have like the mental aptitude to control them.
Yeah, that's kind of what I really like about the X-Men in general, is that like their powers, their powers and how they work in relation to their minds is always like at the forefront, like how their powers affect their state of mind and how, just how their state of mind affects if they're a good person, they use their powers for good or for evil. Like it's why I like that Magneto is never like a full-on villain. And what I loved about X-Men 97 is that he's basically right about what he's saying. It is just like terrifying that he's right. Isn't the line that he says like don't prove me right or something?
Don't make me let you do not make me let you down. That's the
Don't make
line.
me let you down. That's the line. It's like he's a he's not a bad person. He's just not an idealist because the world doesn't let him be an idealist because of how much he's been beaten down. Um, and
I think
he has
Charles
the
says something exactly like that to Taylor. So
yeah, and he has
that's
the powers to do something about it, and he does it. And it's the same, I think, as David. Like
well,
David thinks he's the hero, so he's going to do everything he can to prove to himself that he's the hero, which causes him to do exactly the opposite, to hurting the people he loves.
yeah. Hilariously, that's actually probably why they keep writing Aurora out of SP97. Like, we don't get a lot of her. I'm like, she's one of the more like mentally stable and good and powerful people
Yeah,
of the X-Men. So of course they gotta get her out of the show.
it's hard if your character is very powerful and also normal. Like that kind of fucks you over as a writer.
They're normal, good, and they can control nature. Well, they're gonna win every fight unless
Yeah.
we do something about it. Yeah. What specific like topics you want to talk Legion wise? Because we've gone macro. I'm interested to talk a little bit about season 2 and what they do there because that's one of the more divisive seasons. It's actually
Yeah.
probably my favorite, all things considered. I
That has happened with a few people I've talked to where I've said, "Ooh, season two, people don't like it," and they're like, "Oh, it's actually my favorite," um,
yeah.
which is a good sign. I think how much you like season two is just dependent on how much you've been able to get of what the show has been laying down, and because it is a confusing show, I completely understand if you don't completely get what the show's doing. Um, but a lot of people have a problem
Well,
with the idea of making David not be the hero basically of the story. When season one he was the hero, he was the main character, and there is this protagonist bias that everyone has. Like when you're watching something, you're usually rooting for the protagonist, which is why a lot of people like support Walter White and Breaking Bad until like season five, when they're like, "Oh, now you've gone too far." When I think Vince Gilligan said like in season one when he doesn't accept the deal to pay for his cancer treatment, it's like the first time where you'd be like, okay, I can't support this guy anymore, which I think is
Well, yeah,
fascinating.
it's a funny conundrum with Breaking Bad because like there's so many people. It's exactly what you said of like, okay, when he like let Jane die, like maybe that was there, or
Mhm.
like maybe in season 4, I'm like, dude, back in season 1, there should have been red fucking flags. It
Yeah.
looked like you apparently just missed that. It's like, yeah.
Which is kind of what I feel it's the same for David, and I feel like, like letting Jane die is basically the season 2 ending of Legion, where it's like, okay, you've gone too far. But throughout
Yeah.
the entire show, you saw some glimpses of it. Like, David has always been extremely hungry for power, and that was shown in season 1 for many times, and he had this very um unhealthy relationship with Sid. He was very codependent, and David was always kind of using that to
Oh,
get Sid on his side.
that's part of the tragedy is I feel like, Sid almost grounded him, and when
Hmm.
she turns on him, that's, like, what gets him to full villain mode for
Yeah.
season 3 is that, like, at the end of the day, he always had her, and like
Hmm.
they always were in love, and we're gonna have like a fairy tale ending. And then when that was gone, it was like he didn't have anything to ground him down and to like make him a good person. And that's the thing about season 2 that I love is that David's so confused and just along for the ride, like the audience in season 1. And in season 2, he does a lot more things like with his own because he at least thinks that like Farouk isn't controlling his mind at the beginning, and he seems to have more like independent agency, and I like that that sticks around. It's interesting to have that be like David's state of mind, and then that to carry through into season 3 because I wasn't the biggest fan of him just getting like thrown along for the ride and not knowing what's going on in
Hmm.
season 1. It can make things hard to follow.
Yeah, the show's shown from his perspective mostly, and so season 1 is, you're very much just like trying to ascertain what's going on without being told, because no Holly doesn't like that, where you're just told what's going on and the state of play. You're just like
Well, not to mention he
getting
does
glimpses.
twists, and it's like it's not like he's on the audience's side. He confuses them and like has all these crazy things that happen all the time. So,
Yeah,
it's just a weird filmmaker.
he is. And it's just I I appreciate just like one, because I've rewatched this show way too many times. I just appreciate every time I rewatch season 1 and I pick up on like the small details about David. Like when Sid is about to leave Clockworks. She's about to be released, and David runs to her, and he's gonna kiss her, and then time slows down, and David can listen to her thoughts. All she says is, "David, no." Then she says more assertively, "No," and he still kisses her. It's like, oh, David isn't respecting her boundaries. He's doing this because he thinks he deserves it, because he deserves this happy this fairy tale ending with her. It's just like, oh, that shows something about David, even if you're just getting a glimpse into David's uh mind. But that's the first time where you think David is doing this because he thinks he deserves it. He deserves love. He's a good person, and that's the first time it happens. I'm always like, that's such a good way to do it, because all you have to do is have Sid think assertively, no, and he still does it and are respecting her boundaries. And then when you get to season 2, you're like, yeah, it's fully in character for him to do something like this, because he's always been this way. He's always had this idea in his mind that he deserves this fairy tale ending, and that he's the hero of the story. So when
Yeah.
Sid says, no, you're not the hero, he's like, his entire reality is torn apart.
It's a little like Tai Lung, if you'll indulge me, like kind of the villain that was created through like believing that they were the hero, believing they were the chosen one. Like it's
Yeah,
just David had a certain idea about how the story was going to go, and then he was told that wasn't the case, and it's like, wait a minute, that's not the deal.
yeah. Which is part of why, like, a lot of the blame for what happens is just like because the Summerland keeps telling him that he's sane, because they keep asserting that, no, you're okay, you're fine, you're not schizophrenic, and he ends up believing in it. But if he had a good support system, if they actually could understand what he was going through, he wouldn't have, lost his way so much, because they basically were confirming his delusions that he's the hero, and no, you can control your powers, and everything wrong with you is just that you can't control them yet. And
Well,
especially realizing that Farouk is inside his mind, is like, oh yeah, Farouk was a problem. Now you're okay.
well, and that's the sad thing about it is I feel like all the lead cast of characters had good intentions with David, but like it's all it all has the wrong effect because that's
Yeah,
exactly it. Like they tell him he's not crazy, but that almost tells him that like, everything all the flawed parts of your character are like not your fault. Like nothing bad that you've done to people like is you, it's something else. And yeah, they meant well when they told him that he was not schizophrenic, and they
yeah,
meant well trying to like help him, but it kind of messes with his head.
yeah. And it's interesting because it's what you said is basically what he says to Farouk at the end of season 2 when he goes to torture him. Well, Oliver, but he thinks it's Farouk. Um, where he's quoting what Sid said to him, that all the pain that we went through are our scars, that's our armor, and that's what makes us strong enough to save love, which is what we have to save if we're gonna save the world. Um, and he thinks that like all that stuff, what you did to me, that's my armor, and now's my time to get revenge. So it's like he thinks that everything, all the wrong things he did in his life, he said, oh, the drugs I did, the people I hurt, all you did to me, Farouk, like that's my armor, and that's like him basically saying, oh yeah, everything wrong with me is your cause. You did this, and now I'm going to undo it all by killing you. When like he takes the wrong lesson from what Sid tells him about their pain being their armor. It's basically accepting that you've been hurt and that you've had a difficult life, but that those scars don't have to um, define who you are. But David does the opposite. They define who he is, and they define who he is based on this stuff. The all this stuff happened to me. It's not stuff that I did, which is what's so tragic about David. It's just like nothing, nothing that happened in my life was because I did it. It was because Farouk made me, or because of my powers, or because my dad abandoned me, and never because he could actually have potentially fucked up and done some bad things in his life, because that would mean he has to take accountability, and he fails to take accountability at every step of the way, which is why Lenny kills herself in front of him, just being like, look, no, I could have had a happy life and you took that away from me, and now you're not going to take any more. I'm done helping you. So
It's a there's a really interesting like overarching theme in the show about regret,
mhm,
and that's something that I love about it is that like there's so much that David has to regret, but the thing about it is you can't blame what happened to you when you were a kid. You can't like blame something that happened as like turning you into a person because you can always change. You can
yeah,
always become a different person. You can always try to, change something that like maybe the deck was stacked against you when you were a kid, but it doesn't mean that like you can't rise above that somehow. And there's so many characters that make choices that are like that something happened to them when they were younger or something, or maybe they made a mistake that like put them in an asylum or something like that. But it's all about moving forward rather than, just regretting everything. And that's the thing with David. He blames past events for like
yeah.
making who he is, and he goes the victim route then rather than trying to be a better person or trying
Yeah.
to solve what he had.
Well, what you said is really interesting because you said, you make a mistake and that puts you in an asylum, but he blames his sister for getting put into the asylum. Like, oh, she tricked me.
Yeah.
She lied to me, said I was only gonna be there for a few weeks, and I was actually there for
A
5 years.
Yeah, Amy was an interesting presence. I was low key disappointed. It's supposed to be a devastating thing for David to know when she died, but it, she was really interesting early on because she filled in that role of trying to be the supportive friend
Hmm.
early on, and you can tell she really did have David's best intentions, but yeah, David blames her because in his eyes, that was what that was. It was like deception when
Yeah.
she just wanted to help.
Which is again just like it's such a hard thing. Imagine your sibling it tries to kill himself and he has schizophrenia. Like, what do? You put him in an asylum by any means so they don't hurt themselves anymore. But David just blames her. He's like, "No, you did this to me." It's it's so tragic,
Didn't take the
and it's
right
like,
lessons.
yeah, and it's what I love about that Amy episode is how David blames his sister while he's thinking about all the different outcomes of all the ways his life could have gone differently. Um,
Yeah, that was one of my favorite episodes actually. Like I joked about the Buzz Lightyear meme with all the different episodes and scenes that you loved, but my God, like that entire episode and how they laid that out, how it was like alternative versions of David's life that like what he could have how he might have come out
mhm,
differently if like X, Y, and Z had happened, but in like damn near all of them, Amy gets like the short end of the stick. And it's crazy to just see that in the one that we actually got, she was trying to help him and support him, but he just couldn't see it. And in the rest of them, she just gets treated like shit anyway. It's just it's a funny thing. It's I loved the structure of that episode working in harmony with the theme. Like Noah Hawley doesn't always do that, like at least in the smoothest of ways. But that I was just like, dude, this is so perfect how this
yeah,
is all put together.
yeah, I love it. Just you said about regret. That entire episode is regret. It's David thinking, how differently could my life have gone if just one thing was different. If I decided not to
Well,
stop taking my meds, if I decided to just to if I could use my powers and Farouk helped me become like the richest man in the world, like, well, all that could have happened instead of my sister dying, instead of me being put in an asylum. It's like what could have been.
well, and the funny thing is that in all of them, he isn't happy. Like
No,
he has different like even in the one where he's like the most powerful person in the world, of like you can tell he doesn't have friends, he doesn't have people that like love
I
him.
mean, it's
He
his.
just made it to
Amy
the
asks
top.
him why he keeps the assistant with him, and he says she resents me. I like that. That's his reason for keeping her around. It's like, yeah, he's not happy. He looks extremely miserable. But then there's a moment where he looks in the mirror, and we see Farouk in the mirror looking back at him. It's just that feeling of power, of being the most powerful man in the world. It's what he wants, but it doesn't fulfill him. In the other lives, there's not a single one where he's actually happy and fulfilled. It's just these are the different ways where he could have gone instead of the way it actually did. But they're all unhappy because David can't really see himself having a happy life, which is what's
Yeah,
I
and
always thought was really sad about him. That he says in season one so much that he's sick, and so therefore he can't have a good life and wife and kids and everything. And the
yeah,
one life
it's
actually where he imagines himself happy is the one without Amy, where
oh
he's married
yeah,
to that woman with 2.3 kids, as he says.
that was a really funny like alternative. It's just so funny to see David in all of that, just like waking up and the kids hugging him awake
Yeah.
out of bed. It's like,
I
gotcha.
think that was just like him thinking, if what if I was sane, or like that's
Yeah,
the
what if I
one
was
real.
normal? Like,
Yeah.
what if
But
it's just the
because that's
classic
what
like nuclear family like idea.
yeah, I mean that's exactly what he says. It's crackhead David is like, I could have a wife and 2.3 kids, and then we cut it to that universe. It's just like I could be normal, or I could be what I am. Like I could be this crackhead, and I could be billionaire, and I could be just an old man being taken care of by my sister, just having to eat soup all for every meal because I can't chew anything. Like it's such an interesting view into David's mind that it's not really all that like explained. You're just like, look, these are the different Davids, and you make of it what you will. And I really like that. I especially like, I think I told you, but the ending song in that episode is, it really hits me very hard every time. It's Superman, the song's called, and the song is
Ah, yeah, yeah.
just like, I am Superman, I can do anything, and the song is basically that. uh Obviously lyrics change a little bit, but yeah. And it's just, I think of this idea of David thinking he's so powerful that he can do anything, but he can't undo the things that have caused him so much pain in his life, like his sister dying, or even going back further, his sister putting him in an asylum, which he thinks is like the cause of everything, or maybe Farouk inhabiting his body, which is like the main thing that destroyed his life. Like, he's he's Superman. He has insane amounts of power, but he can't just fix things like that. Like, life is more complicated than just you snap your fingers and you fix stuff. He's, even though he would very much like to believe that life is that simple, that he can just fix everything by using his powers.
Yeah. That was probably in my top 5 favorite episodes. That was really good stuff.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that, even though people weren't enjoying the season a lot, people loved that episode when it came out. It's one of the highest rated on IMDb. And yeah, I I just, I've heard people say it's kind of like, oh yeah, Amy matters to David. This episode's meant to remind us of that, but like the episode's much deeper than that, I feel. And because I think the entire show is just exploring how David sees his reality, and not really just like, oh yeah, she matters to him, like something that's so normal that you'd expect to see in like a normal TV show, you know. Like, Leisha goes a bit deeper. It's like, it's not that she matters, just that she matters to him. It's everything that his life could have been, maybe without his sister, or maybe if his sister were better to him, or maybe if he did something different, maybe if he learned to work together with Farouk instead of letting him ruin his life, you know, like all the different
But
aspects.
and in spite of it all and all of those alternative futures, she's there, like trying
Yeah.
to help him. It's just like, yeah, works really well. Yeah, that
Hmm.
episode's amazing.
Yeah.
What is your unequivocal favorite episode? Because you threw out so many that
Yeah.
I thought were
So
like,
I
I think I remember you said season two's finale was up there, and there was and obviously the season 3 finale was what what was like the
So
main.
the episode that I think is the best probably is chapter 7, the one where they defeat Farouk inside David's mind, in season 1. Just because I think that as like a climax of all that's happened in season 1 is perfect. I think it's probably the best constructed episode in a filmmaking standpoint. In terms of my favorite, it's episode 1 of season 3, the one where we meet Switch, because I just think that episode is
Oh
so
yeah,
much fun. It's
that
so
was
much fun.
insanely entertaining.
Yeah.
That was a really good like welcome to season 3.
Yeah.
This is different pace, different tone. It's very different feeling for the show.
Yeah. It introduces that
The
that,
hallway.
oh yeah, the hallway, but I was just thinking like the vibe of um like the 70s 80s psychedelic vibe, where you're just like bunch of stoned dudes just like going through life,
Oh
and
yeah,
it's kind of like
heavy in
that.
the Pink Floyd inspirations in
Yeah,
season
because it's
3.
like you see so much of David's quote on everyone just being high off their minds, and obviously it works in the story really well because David is doing that, so he has a group of people that love him. You know, that's why he built this cult, is because he thinks he deserves love. Therefore, he found a bunch of people that will give him that love unconditionally.
Yeah,
Uh,
just pour love onto him. Exactly.
yeah, with
It's funny
just a
just
bunch
how
of
much
girls with
that
daddy
makes
issues. Yeah,
sense. I remember laughing at that. I'm like, they're actually doing that. He
yeah,
just he became a Manson cult leader.
yeah.
It's like, oh my god.
But it works really well. It's not just like stupid. It's like, oh yeah, cult.
Yeah.
It works really well with the story. Like, what David has become, just this person who thinks he deserves love and no one's willing to give it to him. So he just finds a bunch of girls with daddy issues that can give him the love that he
Well,
craves, and by drugging them as well.
Well, and Lenny too. That's the funny thing about like her having a role there and being a part of it. It's like it's funny how all that works. Like it just for an ending because they could have done whatever they wanted with David. I
Hmm.
had no idea, but I was like, that makes a great deal of sense.
Yeah.
Surprisingly,
Yeah, I really like the route they go with David in season 3 because after what he did to Sid, um, and him believing that he didn't do anything wrong, you kind of have to like, okay, is he gonna be the villain or just like antagonist or what? And he was the antagonist, but he wasn't really the villain. I think I mentioned it to you when we before we started season 3. You were like, is David the villain now? It's like, not really. He's just he has this role of being
it,
like the driving force behind the plot in season 3 of wanting to of like, oh, he's going to destroy the world, but he's not villainous per se. Like, he doesn't have evil intentions. His intentions are still good, kinda. It's just that his reality is so warped that his good intentions turn into like the awful stuff that he ends up doing.
well, arguably the show doesn't really have a villain like through and through. It's almost like
Hmm.
what's creating conflict, and it'll bounce between if Farouk or David is creating conflict, and it's what you said. It's not because like someone wants to blow up the world or like inflict harm. It's because they want something for themselves and it affects other people.
Yeah.
I mean, that's any conflict with like villains, but people don't. The villainous characters, quote unquote, aren't usually like doing it because they set out to like hurt other people, which kind of is the point. It's like it highlights like how much like people like David and Farouk do hurt people in spite of what they try to do.
Yeah. Which is what I find so fascinating is that scene in season 2 when David says to Farouk, "Oh, you're the villain. You were the villain." And it's like, villain, that word. Do you know what it means? It just talks about the etymology of the word, and just being like, "Look, all I wanted to do was survive, and I got into your body because that was the only way I could survive. So if the choice between life and death, I choose life." Uh, Obviously, he ended up causing David a lot of hurt because of that, but you know, you can kind of understand, like, yeah,
The actor that plays Farouk is good at that, isn't he? Good at like, you know, seeming very open and like, friendly and
while
like,
also seeming extremely
how could this
sly
guy
and
wrong it?
manipulative.
Exactly. He's like such a fox like characters.
Yeah,
Yeah, that actor. What's
Navid
their name?
Negaban.
Yeah,
Navid
amazing
Negaban,
stuff.
in my opinion, best actor in the show. He's really, really good. Um, you
Yeah, I
said
love how you
there's
say that. I'm just like Dan Stevens is. Uh,
it is,
he's
yeah.
such an underrated powerhouse, but yeah, that actor, all the acting through and through. I mean, Gene Smart is the huge bright spot, but the acting was never an issue with this show. Let me
No,
tell you.
yeah, every actor is great, and every actor is like great in different ways. Like, if you have someone like Jermaine Clement, who plays Oliver, is like, he's such a different type of actor than everyone else in the show, but it fits because the show's so weird. It's like a bunch of
Yeah,
this eclectic bunch of people like living their lives, and they're all like affected by this world that's crazy. And each of them just like having to make their way through their crazy lives, like find a way to live through it. And it's just like every one of them is very unique. Like, no two characters are the same. Autonomy is very different from Carrie, and well, both Carries, and either Carrie is very different. One loves fighting, the other one's a nerd, and so it's like a bunch of different personalities, and every actor does great portraying that.
yeah. And interestingly enough, it's not really like based in the comics either. Like,
Oh yeah, this
characters like
shows,
Sid,
yeah.
they went their own route, like, and a very different route for like what the character originally was in the first place. So, from what I understand about Legion in the comics, this is not like even adjacent to what they usually do with them. So, it's interesting that Noah Hawley went that route.
Yeah, the obviously Sid, for people who don't know this, Sid, her name is Sydney Barrett in the show. Her name is obviously inspired by Sydney Barrett, the Pink Floyd uh, guitarist, who obviously had schizophrenia as well. So yeah, inspired by that. Um, and Noah
Yeah,
Hawley took heavy
superhero Pink
inspiration from Pink
Floyd.
Floyd.
That's basically yeah.
Yeah, this show, yeah, superhero Pink Floyd's a good way of describing it. Um, it does feel, it does have a very Kubrick vibe too. The especially Clockwork Orange. Watching that and then watching like season two is like, oh yeah, you can get the same vibe as well. But as you said, like No Holly's so unique that you can really say, oh, he's doing this style or that style. It's like it's all a bunch of stuff that
Yeah,
he's inspired by put together, but you can really identify it like uniquely.
I was mentioning that I'd love to see him make more movies because
Mhm.
like you know what his show standard is like. I'd be curious to see him almost be forced to make like movies of a specific runtime and like see what he does with like less material, less of like a show to make and more of like a story to tell. Because I haven't seen Lucy in the Sky, and you were mentioning that that gets really weird and out there. So, but he's got a really distinctive voice, really distinctive style to his work. It's just a matter of like efficiency in terms
Mhm.
of the films and stories he makes, in my opinion.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, each season has its own style, even in this show, which is, Fargo does that too, but Fargo's an anthology. This show is just really interesting that it has that because each season feels like its own show, but it's all part of a one grand story that also fits together really well. Like Noah Hawley planned the end point of the story from the get go. He said he didn't know how many seasons it was gonna be, but he always knew where it would end. Um, the kind of full circle idea of ending with young David again. He always had that plan of just be like, hey, everything's gonna start again, and it's part of what I really love about the ending as well. It's just the idea that you don't know if everything they did was in vain or not, because it's the ending is literally the same as the first scene of the show. So did they actually change anything or did they not? It's I kind of like that aspect of it.
Yeah, I was mentioning an alternative story that ended on a similar note that I was not a fan of, and it. What I like about what they do at the ending of Legion is that you have an assumption that time is going to be so different and it's going to end on such a different note that it won't even be like the same type of story. Like that's Sid and David disappearing. You're just like, well, it's they probably just fade and then they never met each other, or like, things just played out so differently that they wouldn't even be the same people. Like
Hmm.
I feel more optimism at the end of Legion because it is like a well, so it was just all erased and all of it's for naught. I'm like, well, not necessarily. It all depends on how things play out, and it's just a matter of like, do you imagine things would play out better than they did?
Yeah,
I'm like, probably.
yeah,
Better, maybe not perfect, but they'd probably turn out better. So
yeah. That's funny because we were talking about I Am Legend just before. And the thing that I didn't like about the theatrical ending was them showing the stuff after Will Smith's sacrifice. Like we should have just ended there, and then if you want to think that the ending is hopeful and that they will take the cure to the sanctuary and everything will be fine, like you should, instead of showing that it does actually happen and the character narrates the scene being like, and he
yeah,
saved everyone. Like the way Legion ends is just like, yeah, you should probably think that things are better now and that everything they did was for something, that it meant something. But you shouldn't be told that it is that.
yeah, it's the nice thing about ambiguity. Like ambiguity, you can lean on it sometimes too hard in terms of just like it was open and like you just don't get something that's satisfying. But in that case, they leave it open for your view on like what you want to take from it, and it just all depends on how hopeful you are, like what you think about the characters themselves, and it sometimes it's better not to like because that's the alternative they could have done. They could have green knighted it and just like sped through David's life and showed the highlights and it's been like, see, it did turn out well. And it's like I don't think that would have been necessarily any more or less satisfying. It just would have been like, okay, you just showed me his life, and I guess he's happy now. So, you know, a good job done.
Yeah, I think endings like that, just like imagining where the story will go, works a lot better than giving a definitive ending. Which is, this is gonna be a weird tangent, but I've been watching Supernatural with my mom for years now, and I've watched the entire show like 2 or 3 times. It's really long, so I haven't watched it like 15 times like I have watched Legion. But it's a show I really like. It's not great. I'll never say that it is like amazing, but the ending of that show,
I've
I've
heard
even made a
interesting
video
things
about it.
about it. Sorry, I was just gonna say I've heard interesting things, especially about like certain cast members. Most people say it's still like worth it, right? Like,
Yeah, it's very enjoyable. It's a CW show, so you gotta know that you're getting into a CW show. But it's I really enjoy it. I would say it's the best CW show I've seen, and I've watched all of the Arrowverse shows, at least some episodes of them. Um, but the ending of that show, it's like they try to give a definitive ending, like, okay, this is where the story ends, when the entire show should have ended on like, no, things go on after this. Like, this is the ending of the story we've been following, but these characters are still going to continue doing their thing, which is why I always find that this episode before the finale of Supernatural should have been the actual finale, because it ends on a note of like, hell yeah, we defeated the biggest evil we've faced yet, and now we're gonna keep going. We're gonna keep fighting monsters because that's what we do. But the last episode, everyone, I don't know if you care about this spoiler, but everyone dies. Um, it's just
oh,
the end, because the ending is one of the brothers die during a hunt, and then the other retires and he dies of old age, and that's it. They're in heaven, and that's it. And it's just kind of like, but the entire thing with these characters was that they kept fighting and they never stopped. And I mean, one of them retire, one of them die in a random hunt when they've been fighting for 15 years and they've literally fought God, you know? It's so stupid.
well, it's the same conundrum that like Game of Thrones was dealing with in its final season. They like, for some reason, they just felt like they had to end it with like a everyone gets a happy ending, like jump in the air and click your heels together. Like, for some reason, everyone had to have a happy ending, and it end with the montage of everyone walking off into the sunset. I'm like, this is Game of Thrones. Like, the story that no one ends this story. It's still gonna keep going. Like, why couldn't you like just reestablish like some new law and like show where what everyone's new role is, rather than be like, you know what, this character went out and did this and this and that's not what we wanted.
Yeah. So that's the kind of thing where it's like, ending of Legion, I just appreciate it so much because it's like, this is a full story. If you want to think that the ending is just means the same story being repeated, or if it's a completely new story, that doesn't matter for us. Our story was for these characters, and it ends here with these people dying, being erased from existence at the end because they changed time. Like, that's our story. That's what I love about the text in the beginning of the episode. It says, this is the beginning, the end. No, this is the end, the beginning, the end. What it all means is not for us to know, it's for history to decide. All we can do is play our parts as written. All we can know is ourselves. It's like, if you want to take this as like the beginning of a new story where they managed to make a happy new David and everything was fine, that can be that. If you want to take this as the ending of this story, you can also do that. All we can know is that, like, for us, for the characters in the show, this is where our story ends. We can't know what it all means afterwards. And so the show doesn't go afterwards. It's just like, this is where it ended. This is what the show was about. And it didn't try to like wrap it up in a bow and do like all these oh yeah, David goes on and lives a happy life and then there's actually a happy ending. Like, you know, like the arcs for these characters were finished, and you didn't have to stretch it out to be like, no, see, it all went on to be okay. If you want to think that it mattered, then it meant something, you can. And that's just your interpretation of the show. It's not inherently like what the show's telling you. And because I really hate when shows like are trying to tell you what to feel. Um, just like, yeah, this ending, is super happy. They fixed everything. They saved the world. It's just like, if they want, the characters want to believe they saved the world, they can. If you want to too. You can, but it doesn't mean inherently that that happened. It doesn't mean inherently that they even did anything meaningful. All for it to be meaningful, it just needs to be meaningful to you watching. If you think it meant something, instead of it meaning something to like the show itself, like in universe, it meaning something. I really appreciate that type of aspect to it, like the etherealness, I guess, of what they did with us not knowing exactly like if it actually saved the world or if it was all for nothing. I really appreciate that ending.
Yeah, I think it works well for kind of an end note for the whole product.
Yeah, and just as a whole, like ending the show with the characters like David and Farouk just realizing that they don't need to resort to barbarism and they can actually um, just live happily and like be themselves. It's just really nice when like instead of doing like a bombastic big fight, because like the climax of the final episode of the final season is David singing a song about how he was, because it's Mother by Pink Floyd that he sings, which is my favorite Pink Floyd song. Um, and it's a song about like an abusive relationship between a guy and his mom, a boy and his mom, and uh, you kind of interpret it as like, is the mom in question Farouk? Is it maybe the imagined mom that David thinks his mom actually is? Like he's trying to imagine like this boogeyman of like all that's wrong with me is what you did to me. Is the wall that you created, be it Farouk um, or my mom, through genetics, it was my mom and my dad, or Farouk. It wasn't anything that was actually me. And him finally, after all this time, after blaming everyone else, realizing that he doesn't need to resort to that, to blaming everyone else, is really, really great. Like you can see him losing his mind with a stray jacket and everyone singing and yelling in the background, all the versions of David, and then Charles finally talks him down and is like, "Look, David, I'm sorry that this happened to you, and I know I'll never know what that's like being abandoned. Um, and you went through something that I can't describe, I can understand, and I imagine it was hurt. But I'm here now, and we don't have to continue doing this to keep this cycle of violence." Which, yeah, I really appreciate it, and it's something we were talking about as well with Charles, just the way he's characterized. It fits with his character in other interpretations in the comics and the movies and the in X-Men 97. Just like this very idealistic person that he is. It just fits him so well. Like the hero
Yeah.
he is.
T- Touching as well, the music. You were mentioning that. Something I was thinking of today actually, which is funny, is there's a lot of like underappreciated music that I've been listening to a ton from the show that like they like shine a light on stuff that you might not like have heard of otherwise. But some of the more popular songs, that's when they go for the cover, like
Mm-hmm.
Behind Blue Eyes, Mother, and like there's a bunch of different songs that they do their own cover of, and it's always interesting to see that, to see like they'll like add like a little bit more of a unique spin, like
Mm-hmm.
with their own renditions of songs
Well,
rather
I kind
than
of like it
just relying on
because
popular songs.
they kind of sometimes change the style of the song to fit the vibe of the show,
Yeah.
but the lyrics are what they really wanted to keep because the way the show uses song lyrics to add meaning onto its scenes and its characterization is fascinating. I talked to you about this, but Behind Blue Eyes, it just fits so perfectly for both
Yeah.
Farouk and David as characters. It's like those two. That song is about them. People who think they're doing bad things for good reasons. Who think, uh, they're not evil. They're just forced to be evil. It just works so well for both of them.
Yeah. The music is amazing in the show through and through. And Jeff Russo's score as well.
Yeah.
Like I think some of the most interesting like motifs he created were like made back in season 1 and follow through, but they work well like on a consistent level. But the soundtrack and the OST, like I always love shows like that and movies like that that work in harmony. They have a really good soundtrack and a really good OST, and this is one of them. But I was more impressed by the soundtrack choices than I was for the OST, and like that's not a knock on Jeff Russo's scores. Just they were really good at making their own covers of songs
Hmm.
and of like coming up with the right songs to use at any given time.
Yeah. Which is for the people watching who don't know, the person who sang the covers of the songs was Noah Hawley himself, the
Yeah,
writer
he
creator.
he did that in Fargo as well,
Yeah.
and he did that with Jeff Russo. Like it's funny that he just does, and he has a really good
He
voice. It's
does.
funny, like his covers are subtler. They're not exactly the most like vocal standout versions of the song, but like the subtleness of his voice works well for the like versions they make.
Yeah, I really like it.
I can't believe Fargo did Toxic by Britney. That is so funny to me. I listened to it. I'm like, this is actually really good.
It is actually really good. Noah Hawley's a little bit crazy. It's great. But yeah, I really appreciate the song choices too, because I've loved this, and it's part of one of my favorite things about filmmaking. Because I think I told you that I decided I wanted to be a filmmaker when I watched Guardians of the Galaxy 2. I just came out of that movie. I was like, man, this is what I want to do. Like, I've decided, because that movie just it means so much to me. And the way James Gunn uses music as well, their lyrics to mean something for the story, for their characters, is so powerful. And Legion does that too, and I think Mr. Robot does too, but to a lesser extent. But the way you can use music to help tell your story can be so valuable. Like, just having the correct song choice, like when David, just he right after he tricked Sid at the end of season 2, there's a song that plays that I think is the most perfect one. I forgot the name. I'm gonna need to Google it. Um, crap, I forgot the name. But
Yeah, songs are really good at that. They can carry a scene and they can add so much more to it. I think I mentioned that I don't know a lot about like how music works like functionally. Like
uh-huh.
they're like the kind of thing that YMS does instead of his breakdowns of stuff like The Lion King. Like I'm not as familiar with that level of analysis of music, but I music in movies matters a lot to me, and I can recognize a really
Hmm.
good score and a really good OST. And I'm always impressed by soundtrack because it comes down to like a filmmaker like hearing a song and being like, yeah, that's right for my story. And like
Yeah,
when you see it, you're like, it's like the song was made for the story. It's always cool when you get like something that works up that well.
yeah. Uh, just to clarify, the song I meant was "Nothing in This World." Um, because the lyrics are met a girl, fell in love, glad as I can be, but I think all the
Ah, yeah.
time is she true to me, because there's nothing in this world to stop me worrying about that girl. Find out I was wrong, she was just too timing. I thought I was wrong, she just kept on lying. It's just this relationship between, you
I,
think you can trust someone that you love, but you can't really, and you have this debate inside your head. It's right after David tricks Sid into like loving him again. It's like it fits
I
so well.
forgot that was when they used that song. That yeah, that was genius.
It
Really,
was. I think this
really
probably the
interesting, really
best
good
choice of
stuff.
song in this show. I always, whenever I hear that song, I'm like, man, this is so perfect. I can't believe you found this
Well,
song to fit this moment.
and the tone as well, like how happy-go-lucky, met a girl,
Fell
fell in
in love,
love, glad
glad
as
as I
I can
can
be. It's
be.
like just that like happy-go-lucky, like laid back nature of it. It's just it's like a casual love song. It's funny for that to be used. That's
Yeah,
what I was talking about. Like the when you find the perfect tone as a filmmaker, it's awesome.
yeah, and yeah, I just think every song choice on the show is good. I really like every song they use, but that one's probably my favorite. Um, And yeah, the soundtrack's stacked. Like they there's a lot of rock, different types of rock. There's The Who, which is very classic rock. Uh, then there's Rolling Stones. There's Pink Floyd. There's uh, Velvet Underground, Jane's Addiction, Radiohead. Bunch of there's a few famous songs, but mostly like from bands I never even heard of before, and they all really fit really well. And it's something that James Gunn has talked about before when he's writing his scripts, because he writes the songs into his scripts, and I do that too, when I write my own scripts. But it's like when you're writing something to have that vibe of like, wait, I think this song will fit. You need to know so many songs, like to just be able to identify like, oh, this song, this will fit here. And I think it's especially impressive when James Gunn does it with, because it's period specific, because for the first Guardians it's only 70s 80s songs because of the period when Peter was taken from Earth, and then in the second one it's the same because his mom gifted him the other tape, and then the third one is all from his not iPod, it's like Zumo, I forgot the name of the thing.
I think Zune is what it is.
Zune, yeah, Zune. Yeah, so it's like
Yeah.
early 2000s mostly. So it's like very period specific, which I always find impressive. Like you have to find the right songs that fit the vibe of the movie and tell the story the way you want to tell, specifically from a certain era. Like I find that so impressive.
Yeah. James Gunn and Martin Scorsese are like two directors that like that's like a consistent thing for them, like time period
Hmm.
appropriate music and just really interesting soundtrack choices in general. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Which is actually interesting because you said time period appropriate. I just remember Django Unchained, where Tarantino uses very anachronistic music, and it fits really well. But yeah, he.
Yeah, there's something to be said for that. I always find it funny. I'm still waiting for like a medieval Django Unchained because I'm like I love when stories do that. They like break like their genre even just with like aesthetic choices that like don't match the time period, but it just works. Like that's I love when filmmakers do that. It's
Yeah.
amazing.
Which actually, funnily enough, brings us back to Legion, because I do find it really interesting the way this show, we were talking about this before we started recording, but the way the show kind of exists outside of time, it's fascinating.
Yeah.
It's like it exists outside of time and outside of space. It just exists basically.
Well, and you were mentioning that season 3 is like colored by like a Pink Floyd like vibe,
Hmm.
but the show in general, like I mean, you're led to believe it takes place around when the show started in like 2016 or 17, and that's kind of the time it feels most of the time. But a lot of the rest of the time, it doesn't feel like you're in any given year or time or anywhere.
Or
It's just
space, yeah.
a thing. It's
Because
Noah Hawley.
either like, are we in America? Are we in somewhere else? Is this even our world? It's so, because they never specify anything about the geography of the show, and they never specify the time. The closest we get is in season 3, and we talked about it, but the show's basically set in the 90s, especially if we take it if we think about the Second World War, which is when Charles meets Gabrielle at the end of the Second World War. And so to think David being 30 years old, they stayed around for a few years. Yeah, it'd be like 90s. Um, but like it doesn't feel like the 90s. It doesn't feel like any time. Like it has this retro futuristic vibe where it just feels like you mentioned that I like it as well, is the screens in season 1 that Division 3 uses. They're just like sheets that show stuff on it, like
Yeah,
a
it's like
computer
paper.
screen.
Just
Yeah.
the
And you're like,
yeah. There's
what type period is that? I don't know, man. It's technology, it's advanced, but we're also, we have the characters dressed like it's the 80s, and like it also changes between seasons, like the way the characters outside of the main cast dress like people in the real world. Like we don't know when it is. And in the episode where David imagines his different lives, like Amy uses a laptop and an iPhone, and stuff seems to be set around the 2010s. So that's it's outside of time, and I really appreciate that because sometimes it kind of annoys me when things are trying to be like, oh, this is like the real world, or trying to be like specific to a specific time. You can just like tell your own story and not specifying when or where it's set. Like it doesn't hurt the story if it's not relevant to it. Um, so I appreciate
Well,
that.
it's funny. There's a lot of different stories that are actually like doing that, either like cashing in on like the past in terms of the technology that exists. Like there's a lot of there's a modern detective show that a friend recommended to me called Sugar. I don't know if you've heard of it. It's got Colin Farrell, but
Oh yeah, I
apparently
have
it's
heard of
just
it.
a yeah, but apparently it's just a modern detective story. Like it's a full out like gumshoe like PI, but it's just takes place in modern day. And it's like it's funny to get like retro stories like that. We're getting a lot of like retro like murder mysteries that are like taking place in a modern era, and it you don't even need to subtract that much technology from a story like that for it to feel more like it was from an older time period. But yeah, there's so much analog tech that's inside of Legion, or there's like things that feel like older and or like more futuristic than like the current time period, but
Yeah.
they're just thrown in just because. And like
Yeah, I
you
mean,
don't
their
need
phones
much.
look like it's like 80s, 90s, like big blocky phones, but then you have like Carrie recreating in 3D the scene of the fight between David and Farouk at the end of season 2. It's like it's such stark contrast between like the level of technology and the 80s, 90s like bulky type of technology. It's it's nice. I like it the that contrast. And you were talking about that about like oh detective story set in the modern day. It just reminded me of Knives Out and Glass Onion, where it's just like it's a whodunit. It's supposed to be like a classic whodunit from decades ago, but it's set in modern day. And the way the Glass Onion does it is like you see they're in a remote island and they fixed COVID because they wanted to set
They
it
have a
at, like they set it in like the fucking present day instead of just being like
it does
modern day. They're
it
like,
does
no, it is
nothing too. It was
2021.
like it was like 2 years after COVID. They just did it to do it.
It's so stupid.
I hate that movie.
And then to you remember when to make it so that they don't have that much technology and everything. It fucking I forgot the character's name. Edward Norton. Everything he uses is analog. Remember? And
Yeah, he
that
doesn't
was the
have a
way they did.
phone and he uses a fax machine for
Yeah,
some reason.
yeah,
Like,
because Ryan Johnson wanted stuff to remain a little analog to help him write it.
yeah.
It's I don't like it when stuff does that. That's basically
I
the
just
bottom line.
love that that's what they went with. Like and that's literally important because he like faxes a document to someone at a certain time, and I'm like,
Yeah.
Ryan, it, I know people go for that, but I'm like, it is impossible to run a company to the effect that this guy has if you do not have a cell phone, or at least like a right hand man with a cell phone that does all your PR. But they're like, no, he runs the company, and the point is that he's an idiot. So
Yeah.
God,
Not a fan of
why
that
do you
movie.
write your movies, Ryan?
Good director, to be fair. But
Good director, really good director. He just needs a co-writer.
to be fair, I watched Brick. I liked that. That was fun. He
Rick is
wrote it.
great. It's Kino.
Yeah. Um,
That would be an interesting one to talk about.
we could.
Talk about
I
the
do need to rewatch it, to be fair.
unsung heroes of Ryan Johnson's filmography. I've
Brick and
always
Fly
championed.
extremely underrated.
Yep, and 51. Everyone wants to talk about Ozymandias, but 51. That's a really good episode.
Yeah,
All about
I mentioned
Skylar.
only Fly because people hate that episode for some reason.
Yeah, it's kind of a black sheep. I mean,
Yeah.
it's canonically filler, which is interesting, but like even still, I think that episode's overhated.
I think that episode's great. I think it's genuinely amazing.
Pretty much again the joke of it, like it when you're canon filler, I'm like, yeah, it's pretty peak for that. Like,
Yeah.
that episode only exists because they couldn't afford to make it any better, so they had to make it a bottle episode, and they needed it for the episode count. So I'm like, that's what we got. I'm like, you did really
Yeah,
good.
I'm very happy with us getting that. Speaking of famous directors that directed TV shows, Daniel Kwan directed an episode
Ah,
of Legion. I tied it back to Legion. I'm
yeah.
so proud of myself.
And,
Yeah,
and Andrew Stanton as well,
Andrew
for
Stanton. Yeah,
right for the first episode of season 3, if I'm not mistaken.
yeah, and
Which
Daniel
those
Kwan was
were
episode
some of the
4.
standouts. Yeah, those were actually the standouts of that episode or of that season, or some of
Yeah,
them anyway.
yeah. This episodes they directed were probably the most fun episodes. One was the war with the time demons, the one that Daniel Kwan directed. And as I said, my favorite episode of the show is episode 1 of season 3, uh, which it's just a ton of fun. It's really really well directed. Um, it is
Yeah, but
the entire cast, the entire cast behind the show, like everyone behind the scenes that worked on it was just phenomenal. Like I love every aspect of it. There's so many talented people that he brought along to Fargo, or that he brought along from Fargo, that just make this show so special. Like Dana Gonzalez, he's a director of photography. He DP'd a lot of episodes of this show, and then he ended up directing some episodes of Fargo season 5. Like there's a lot of really talented people that worked on this show.
hmm, I am really curious to check out Fargo again now that I've seen Legion, because I'm curious what season 5 is going to look like when he no doubt like triples down on the Legionisms to
Actually, season
Fargo.
5
Like,
is more similar to season 1. Season 5 is very toned down.
you'd compare it to 1 and not 3?
Yeah, 1. Season 5
Really?
is, yeah.
Huh.
Season 5 is way more similar to 1. It's just a more grounded, but not fully grounded, because it's Noah Hawley, as grounded as it can be with Noah Hawley doing Fargo. Story about like an abuse victim, basically, domestic abuse victim, and some crazy like cult of outright nut jobs. Yeah, that's basically it. So it's just like it's very it feels way more grounded than season 3 and season 4 did, because I think season 4 just went off the rails with the amount of characters, and season 3 is very much easier to digest, at
Pared
least.
down. Yeah. Interesting.
Interesting. Yeah. Um but yeah, I don't know what else we have to say about Legion. We've been going for an hour and a half.
We have been. And talking in generalities, I was kind of mentioning like the we might be wise to tackle shows like season by season if we want to like do this as a format. It's a little tricky, like trying to keep this digestible when talking about the macros of a show like this. But yeah, I think we've gone through most of the stuff we liked. So
hmm Yeah, and I didn't ramble on too much, because there's always the problem that I will talk way too much about my favorite TV show. So I
I'm
think,
with it too of us going around on tangents. I feel like it's part of the fun that we can have here. So
yeah. Um. All right. Well, the idea now, folks, is that one of us recommends a movie for the other and you people watching to watch before our next episode, and then we can have a discussion about it next episode.
hooray!
Yeah, and we talked about it, Evan, and you seem to have a recommendation.
Well, I had one that was in my mind that was for a very specific reason, and then I had an obvious choice. So I'll go with the obvious choice because I really want to talk about this movie. It's going to be Godzilla minus one.
All right.
That is my choice for next week. I've rewatched that movie a lot, especially as of late. I've rewatched the black and white version recently, and that movie's gotten better on rewatch, and there's a lot that I want to talk about of why I think it's as good as it is.
All right. Well,
So that home theater, you're gonna have to
oh
flex
yeah.
that or whatever it is that gets you to watch that movie.
I
Because
was actually I almost watched it today because I I was between that and I Am Legend. I was like, I Am Legend's probably a more digestible movie to watch. Or Godzilla minus one I wanted to
yeah,
watch like with full attention.
yeah, I'd say I Am Legend is a little more within the turn your brain off realm, but
Yeah,
it's God's. We could talk about it. It's kind of funny how much like the first half and second half like fight each other tone wise. Like the tone is pretty consistent, but man, the first half is like pretty bleak and things. They get more like optimistic later on, but yeah.
interesting. All right, well I've been wanting to watch that movie for a while, so good excuse to watch it now.
I I recommend it. We will have many things to talk about when we get there, but my God, it's good stuff. You should see it.
Good, good. All right, well that's it for us for today, from us for today, folks. Thank you very much for watching. Like, comment, and subscribe. Yeah, and we'll see you next time with
Yeah.
our discussion of Godzilla minus one. Also, watch Legion.
Watch Legion, Godzilla minus one, X-97.
Yes, X-Men 97 as well. All right, bye bye.
Bye bye.